Okay, you're recording.
Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 at 5:00 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Town of Sutton Select Board meeting. Tonight we'll start with roll call just to identify our members. I'm David Hall, Chair. Wendy?
Wendy Mead, Vice Chair.
Jesse Lemanik, Clerk.
Jonathan Anderson, member.
Jeff Bannon, member.
Jim Smith?
Jim Smith, Town Manager.
So I think that's everybody that we intend to have participate in the meeting, with a couple of other people here. We'll identify if they end up speaking. I have to start with our disclosure about digital meetings. This is an open meeting of the Town of Sutton Select Board. It's being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. The governor's order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. This order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. In this case, we will allow public comment. We're convening via Zoom. The Zoom instructions have been posted publicly so that for public forum, if somebody wanted to, they could contribute. Later tonight, we are also having a public hearing, poll hearing, and that hearing is available for the public to comment, should they choose to do so. Note that this meeting is being recorded, so be careful about sharing your computer screen because anything that you do share will be publicly available. So I think that's about all we really need to do. The rest of it is just for conducting the meeting, and I think we've all done that enough, so we're good. I think I will just briefly share my screen and allow you to see the agenda for tonight's meeting. So I can't tell. I assume you can see that agenda at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
So quickly, our opening agenda item is public forum. And I don't believe we have anybody calling in or dialing in for public forum. Is that correct? So absent that, we can move on. Our next agenda and item, Jesse, is the select board minutes.
Yes, sir. I'd like to, if I may, Mr. Chairman, make a motion for us to accept as presented the select board minutes from our meeting on April 28th, 2020, as presented.
Second on that?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? David Hall, aye.
Wendy Mead, aye.
Jesse Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
So it passes 5-0.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd also like to make a motion in regards to our Select Board and Finance Committee joint meeting minutes from 5/5/2020, as presented.
Second.
Another motion and a second. Any discussion at all? David Hall, aye.
Wendy Mead, aye.
Jesse Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, abstain.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Passes 4-0 with one abstention. Thank you very much. Next up is a certificate of recognition for healthcare workers and first responders. And Jesse, if you have that available, if you'd like to read it into the record.
Yes, I do. You have to apologize. I'm squinting. I'm reading it off my phone. In grateful acknowledgement of healthcare workers and first responders, whereas our nation, Commonwealth, and towns struggle to cope with the scourge of the coronavirus pandemic, and whereas many of our town's residents and employees practice in the healthcare field and as first responders, and whereas these residents and employees are placing their own lives, health, and well-being in jeopardy as they care for many patients in the greater Worcester and Greater Worcester area and beyond. And whereas the tireless dedication and fearless efforts of these citizens deserve our steadfast support and encouragement, now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Sutton Select Board, take this opportunity to honor and acknowledge the hard work, compassion, and courageous daily care given by those Sutton residents and employee first responders, whether they be doctors, physician assistants, nurses, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, police officers, medical assistants, pharmacists, home health care aides, grocery store workers, and many others as they battle this pandemic on the front lines. In witness thereof, the Sutton Select Board has caused this certificate to be signed this 19th day of May in the year 2020.
Excellent. Small print or not, you read it well. Thank you.
I do my best, Mr. Chairman, as always.
I think we're all happy to adopt that. So thank you for putting that before us, Jim.
May I ask you a question, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
How do we handle the execution of the document as it requires all of our signatures?
Yeah, I spoke to Jim about that. I think what he suggested is that we can leave it in the alcove of Town Hall. And he'll leave a pen, although if you want to bring your own pen, then you can sign it there. So that'll be there for the next, long, I guess, as it takes for us to sign it. So
Okay, thank you.
if we can all, make an attempt to get over to sign it, that'd be great. So actually, skipping over one agenda item for just a moment, we're happy tonight to have Michelle Edelstein with us from the Senior Center. However, before we get to that, we're going to have her listen to a public hearing on a poll hearing, just for your entertainment, Michelle.
Okay.
So with that, I will declare the public hearing open. And then, Mr. Clerk, if you could read the announcement into the record.
Yes, sir. Public hearing via new Zoom notice. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, you are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 19th, 2020, via Zoom upon petition from National Grid and Verizon for permission to install one JO pole and remove one JO pole on Reservoir Ave, beginning at a point approximately 100 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Manchog Road and continuing approximately 15 feet in an easterly direction, moving P1 approximately 20 feet north of its current location. Also, for permission to erect and maintain poles and wires, together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary. Plan file herewith marked number 2955550.
Excellent, thank you for that. Jim, do you want to give us some background on this?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request actually came in, one of the residents that owns a property abutting this situation brought this to my attention. And what happens is, this is the easement to access the Stevens Pond Dam. Town trucks often go down that easement to access that whole area. And what you find is no truck can make that turn. No car really could make that turn. So what you really need to do is drive south on Reservoir Ave and then turn around in the middle of the road and drive up through that area, because the telephone is in the way. It's right off the side of the road and adjacent to that access point. That telephone pole has a number of hits and nicks to it. And rather than continuing the situation, the resident requested that we move the telephone pole north a little bit to take it out of that area. In addition, we have a large, I think it's an oak tree there that may continue to be an obstacle to clear access, and we will judge that once the pole is moved. But if that is still an issue, then we will probably take down that tree as well to make it a clear entrance exit from that easement to Stevens Pond Dam.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so I just want to make sure that there isn't anybody in the public that wants to comment about this. You know, I understand that because of the nature of this meeting that somebody would have had to have the instructions and be dialed in, but that opportunity has been presented, so I just want to make sure that there's nobody.
Nobody's waiting, Dave.
Okay.
Dave, I just want to say that all the abutters were notified,
Yep.
actually a couple of times because we had an issue with the contact information, but they had the opportunity to attend this, and no different than a regular public hearing that we would hold up at the select board meeting area.
Sure, and as we all know that poll hearings are not particularly well attended typically, so it's not really unusual that we wouldn't have anybody for public comment, but nonetheless, I want to make sure that that opportunity is afforded. And you know, it's a little bit awkward, I guess, if I can editorialize for a minute, because we just really haven't done this much. But really, for the public, I want people to know that we're doing everything that we can do in this circumstance to make ourselves available and make the opportunity available for people to participate in the public process the same way that we would if we were together. And so I just want to make that clear that people have had the opportunity to know that this meeting was happening and to participate if they chose to do that. So with that, I would go around the table and invite questions or comments. So Jesse?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, real quick, I'm assuming that Matt Stencil and Matt Belcito and the EMS have signed off on this?
That's correct. Yeah, police, fire, and highway have all signed off on it.
As long as their signatures have signed off on this and the residents or the neighbors have been notified, then I see no issues with this.
Thank you.
Wendy?
Judging by the diagram, it makes perfect sense to me as a layperson, so I have no issue either.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Same here. This makes absolute sense.
And Jeff?
I'm all set with it too.
And Jim, I guess two things. I want to thank Mr. Russell for bringing this to our attention, and then also, you know, I assume that our process or getting this to National Grid to take care of is easy enough to do. Or
Yeah, we've come this far without an issue, but they've been very responsive, even with the shutdown of pretty much all of the economy. So I appreciate National Grid's response, and hopefully very shortly the pole will be removed or moved.
all right, any other comments from anybody? All right, so we need a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
Let's do all in favor. Aye.
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 Declare the public hearing closed 5-0. And now we need a motion for the actual vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve joint poll hearing number 29555550 from National Grid and Verizon as advertised in the April 30th, 2020 Millbury Sutton Chronicle.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor. David Hall, aye.
Wendy Mead, aye.
Jesse Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
And that also passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And now we, after that really exciting poll hearing, get to move on to our Council on Aging Director, Michelle Edelstein. Welcome, Michelle. It's great to have you here. We get to hear from you from time to time. Again, first time in this particular format. And I think it's been an interesting time down there. So it's all yours.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. There are a couple of things that I'd really like to discuss with you. The first being, I owe a sincere thanks to all of the businesses, individuals, and organizations that are donating to the food pantry. There are so many to thank, and we're reaching out to thank everyone who is donating. So honestly, thank you so much to everyone. You have a very generous town, and it's been fantastic. The food pantry currently is seeing about 5 families a day. That's about 20 bellies or so. Sometimes we get as many as 8, 10 families. There are just a number of individuals as well that are using the pantry. I really need your help in stressing that all residents in the town of Sutton that are in need of food, please to come out, to reach out to me over at the Senior Center Food Pantry. It is very confidential, as it is very humbling to have folks come out and have to use the pantry. So, you know, I just want to stress that. I really need people to get that word out there, to let them know that this is available, and I really want them to come out and use it. They're complete confidentiality. Food pantry's been crazy busy, so it's good. It's been good, and thanks again to everyone who's donated.
Okay. Anything? How about you know, the senior center itself?
Oh, I'm glad that you asked. Thank you so much. Thanks so much. It's always usually an afterthought. The senior center has, and I'm saying it a million times, in the 15 years that I've been here, this is the busiest that it has ever been. These are folks that are coming out of the woodwork, and they're needing assistance. They're scared, they're lonely, they have things that need to be done. They need to get to doctor's appointments, which we've been, able to manage. There are people that need to get their prescriptions picked up. There are people that need groceries picked up that are just afraid to go themselves, and as they should be. So above and beyond that, we also have a lot of seniors that are using that get Meals on Wheels, and each week we seem to add another person for Meals on Wheels, and that goes to all of our homebound seniors in town. And you're looking at 100 plus seniors who get a meal each week from Meals on Wheels. And I can't thank Michelle Saucier enough for the hard work that she's doing, because it's much different than our usual just pack it up and go. We have to really be concerned with dietary needs. We have to make sure that we're meeting those goals. And to the volunteers who continually drive Meals on Wheels, that is fantastic. They've been a huge, huge help to do that. And again, these are seniors that are putting themselves in harm's way to make sure that the meals do get out there. Let's see. There is a lot of seniors that are reaching out for help with food stamps, which is SNAP, as well as families for the pantry looking for SNAP assistance. We have the forms. I'm able to help fill them out. In the last couple of weeks, I've done some notary stuff where people drive by and I notarize things and they take off. There's Shine information, and I can't thank Pat Morris enough for jumping in and being able to field those phone calls and answer those questions for us. Medicare questions, census, help filling out census, well-being checks. Diane Hanley's doing a great job, as well as Clark Alderman doing those well-being checks, and being there as grief counselors as well, because they really need someone to talk to. And another person who's been just instrumental in helping us as the senior center is Paul Maynard. Paul keeps me informed daily about the things that are going on. He continually gets me the supplies that I need, sanitizer, masks, things that I'm also able to give seniors that need masks, or if they need some hand sanitizer, call me. We have that available in small quantities. And again, thanks to Paul Maynard for that, who got us hooked up with MEMA. I don't know if you noticed on Facebook, we drove out the other day to pick up some supplies out in Framingham for that. So thanks to him for all of that. So busy time. We are here for those seniors. Really just reach out to us because this is what we're here for. And it's nice to see the senior center come together for what it truly is. Exercise, all of that stuff, social stuff is great, but truly this is the meat and potatoes of what we do best. So thanks to my staff and everyone for making that happen.
Great. If it's okay with you, I'd like to just open it up to the board and let the conversation go that way. So we'll start with Jesse.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
If you don't mind, I do have a couple of questions for you.
Oh, good.
All right. So after giving it some thought, obviously you are operating behind closed doors in shortened hours. In terms of your day-to-day activities, what are you doing differently that you are doing now than you would do before?
So differently is certainly sanitizing everything, regardless of whether people are coming in, because there's still myself that comes in, Paul, staff really, and making sure that that's all sanitized and as well as the volunteers, making sure that that's a safe situation for them to come in. Reaching out to people daily is something completely different for us. Making a lot of phone calls and seeing the necessary work for seniors who just need some assistance, right down to helping them with their laundry. Even though we don't have programming, there's no programming there. It is really busy in different things other than programming. It's a lot of forms. It's a lot of filling things out. It's a lot of communication with others to get help.
Yeah, I would imagine that's definitely different because I know whenever I've been down there to visit, the phones are ringing and people are coming into the doors and now you're doing more outreach. So
yeah, it's more outreach and a lot with the food pantry. The food pantry, honestly, is a full-time job. It really is.
Is there anything new that you've implemented that you may continue when we return to normalcy?
Oh, I sincerely hope it's the continuing of the outreach. It's really reaching out to these seniors. We made, and thanks to Hannah, we made, and Hannah is Jesse's daughter, Hannah helped to make little food complimentary packages, as well as put a note in there from the senior center saying that we're there to look out for them and give them a hand. This was a hand-drawn note. It went out to people over the age of 80 in town. And Annabelle Ritzer was my high school intern. Unfortunately, she couldn't intern, but she is interning. So at a distance. So she went out and did all the deliveries for that. A lot of phone calls from seniors who were grateful to have, to know that somebody was out there. And I think it's to continue to reach out to the seniors who have little to no family or families that live on the other side of the coast. It's nice to see how grateful people are over that.
Through this process of outreach, have you discovered any senior who might have previously been hesitant to come and call and visit the center?
Yeah. So twice, I want to give you two perfect examples. One is I had a senior reach out for hand sanitizer and masks, and this is where this whole thing got going with Paul Maynard. I said, yes, I got some masks and some gloves, and I got some sanitizer for you. Now, she's been in town, forever, and she's not old, so she never wanted to come to the center. So she came down, and she was surprised to see how beautiful it is on the outside, and to see really that she got that support for free, which, essentially it's their tax dollars at work. But she was sincerely appreciative of that. And the seniors who are getting, that are new to Meals on Wheels, are grateful. It's something that you don't, you know, we know people are grateful, but I think it really reached out to people to let them know that we're here.
Right, right. Very good. Well, I obviously have more questions for you, but I'm going to share this this Zoom time with my colleagues. But before I let you go, I'd just like to thank you for all that you're doing, because obviously the center would not be functioning to the degree that it is in light of everything that's going on without your stewardship. So thank you, Michelle.
Wow.
And please thank Michelle, Diane, Tim, and Clark from me, because
will.
I know, you know, they're part of the team, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Good folks. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Wendy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, Michelle, thank you for being here and giving us an update.
Yeah.
I can tell you, as a family member of elders, the transportation that you're providing to doctor's appointments is critical. The anxiety that I know they feel about potentially missing an appointment is enormous. I did have one question. Do you know, is the library still able to offer books to those people who are homebound?
They are. In fact, all they have to do is contact me, and I am more than happy to get them in touch with what they need from the library, which has been fantastic. Funny you should say that, because I got a couple of phone calls today regarding how do I get books, because they've read everything in their house twice.
That's such a wonderful resource. It's great to hear that that's still ongoing.
Yeah.
But again, just thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy. Jonathan?
Michelle,
Hi.
you know, just thank you for coming today. And I want to thank you and your staff and all the volunteers that, you know, are providing all these services. And I just really appreciate the adaptability of the center and discovering outreach and all the different services that people need in this time. It's just really comforting to me to know that not only just for the seniors, but also for families in need, that these services are available at the most critical time in really our history that I can think of. And I'm just super appreciative of all the programs that you have and the ones that you've created, you know, in the outreach, you know, to meet the needs of our seniors and give them the critical services they need, and finding more services they need and providing them. So I just really appreciate that. And, you know, I also want to acknowledge Paul Maynard for what he does to support the center as well. So this is such an incredible service. And, you know, even before this, it was such a great asset to the town, and now it's even more so,
Yeah.
just so important. So I guess the only question I have is there anything that you need from us at this point? I know you've kind of given us an update, but.
Yeah, I really just think just letting, if you know, if you see seniors and you're, you know, you're talking with family and friends, people in the town, let them know that we're here. Let them know that we're there for them. The food pantry is there for them. If they're bored and they need exercise, I put up on cable access. Thanks to cable access for running stuff for me. That is fantastic. For putting up an exercise program that seniors can follow and do at home, because many of them don't have computers or can't really get into that whole computer technology thing, but can snap on the TV to public access and do exercising and get some updates. Really just pass the word that we're here. We're here for the 60 plus population, and you're 75 right on up to 96-year-olds are really getting hit hard emotionally. And again, when they have families that are all over and can't get to them, and being, you know, a daughter of parents who are 3.5 hours away, it is rough. And I wish I had a senior center by them. It's huge. It's huge to have these things, and please come out and use them. I like to say they're essential, because essentially people wouldn't get to chemo or dialysis or get blood drawn for tests that they have. Or food, and that's huge. So
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for coming today and giving us an update.
thanks.
Excellent. Jeff?
Mr. Chairman. Hi, Michelle. And thank you for the update today. Thank you. I'm going to just echo what my colleagues have said about thanking you and your staff. And when I saw you on the agenda today, that you addressed really the question I had, which was outreach to seniors, because I know that right now it seems like this is really exacerbating a lot of the issues that seniors have, because they're really the most vulnerable group. And a lot of times there's health issues and so you have that sense of isolation a lot with that. And one of the just personal experiences that I had with talking to somebody that was elderly is, and I hadn't really thought about it, is they had a part-time job that they couldn't do anymore. And that extra money was what got them through the month. And so, so I'm glad you came in. The issue that I had that I was going to ask you about was the outreach. And I'm glad that you've really kind of focused on that and made that a priority.
Our seniors realize how hard they're hit. It really hits home with them, with the folks that have passed away at the VA and Holyoke. That was a big thing. And to all those families of veterans who just really did everything they could for us to lose their family members, is tough because they can't do funerals. It's really, really tough because they weren't able to say goodbye.
So thank you. And that's really was my biggest question when I saw you on the agenda today. So again, thanks. Many thanks to you and your staff. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Michelle, I'm glad you started out with the food pantry, and it's, I guess I'm just grateful to hear that your resources, your donations to the food pantry it sounds like they're expanding beyond the normal places that you tend to get your donations. So to hear the corporate world stepping up to help out is, it's just nice to hear. We don't have a big corporate base here in town,
Right.
But to be able to have those people support us in this time is really good to hear. Jesse's been telling us right along about continued donations from St. Mark's in particular. And kudos to Jesse himself and certainly to Hannah for continuing to facilitate those donations and get them where we need them. And
it's hard to be able to say thank you to everyone, because I know inevitably I'm going to forget somebody, and I certainly don't want to do that. But honestly, yesterday we took a trip up to, of all places, New Hampshire. New England food distributors donated, oh my God, probably $1,500 worth of canned meats, canned chicken, canned ham, things like that, which was fantastic. And we got that actually through some connections from Diane herself. So.
And I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that the food pantry is being drawn on at such a greater extent than you typically have. But, I know, for example, that we would normally contribute through the church, and we're not going to the church anymore. So
Right.
for people to remember to reach out and still contribute the way that they would have, just grateful to hear that people are doing that. And, it's also interesting to hear how much extra burden is being placed on your team there through all the needs that are sort of been awakened because of this virus. And I guess my question is, do people around town have an opportunity to help at this point, or are you kind of stuck because of the circumstances?
Well, we're really kind of stuck because of the circumstances. However, I have a good core of volunteers that have been able to do things because they started with us in the beginning. I don't really have a way to test people to make sure that they are safe to go out and do any assistance. But we do have, Tim or Clark or Diane, more so Tim, that is able to run out and do any of these extra things that need to be done, so that no one is, face to face. He gets it. He wears the mask. People are wearing their masks and they're wearing their gloves and they're, changing everything all the time. So people are able to volunteer, but it's a little difficult still at this time, because I really just need to make sure that I keep whoever's coming in contact with my seniors safe, and to make sure that they stay doing what they should be doing.
So if somebody's listening to this and they're kind of inspired, let's say, to take on the task of Meals on Wheels deliveries, and so they can't right now, but if they keep this in mind, and sometime in the future when things are, sort of back to more normal, do you anticipate that you're going to have continued demand, and what do they do at that point? Can they just call you someday in the future and work on that?
Absolutely. They can give us a call, and they get a Corey check, and they get information filled out through Tri-Valley. And they talk to Michelle Saucier, who is our meal program director. And when there is an opening for a Meals on Wheels driver, and if it continues to grow the way it is, we're going to need more drivers. Not only do we take care of Sutton, but we also take care of Douglas and part of Northbridge as well. I kind of say we're kind of the hub of the universe over there, because they have limited support, and it's really falls upon us to make sure that everybody's safe, whether they're in our hometown or just on the outskirts of our town.
So I guess the last thing, more of a question I guess that I have is that, right now we know that your sort of normal services are shut down, and the state is working on kind of opening up, and at some point you may get the green light to be able to come back. But I wonder, with the sensitive nature of the people that you serve, and I guess B, how busy you are, whether that seems like a distant thing at this point, and or whether you see some opportunity to be able to get back to some of your typical services.
Right. Good question. Now I've been working with the Mass Council on Aging, who weekly rolls out ideas as to how we are going to go forward eventually. Governor Baker did mention that the seniors, anything pertaining to seniors, will be the absolute last thing to be implemented, because they are the hardest hit group. But my hope is that in going forward, we wouldn't open up to exercises and group activities, but we would be available for someone to come in and get some assistance and go. If they needed to come in and utilize the computer, I took every measure and made the computers so that they're 6 feet apart, in the eventual hopes that they can come back a little bit at a time without having groups in the senior center. There are a lot of different options that we can do. Go for walks, go for bike rides, because there are several folks that do that. And being outside with their masks on and with one of us is, I'd like to think is kind of a safe thing. So we're going to come up with some different alternatives. I don't see why I eventually couldn't have some of my receptionists come back, because they're just getting antsy. So, and I'm really kind of getting antsy to have that. It'd be nice to have somebody answering the phone. So,
have you been teaching people how to do Zoom calls?
Well, I wish they could. I really wish they could. No, many of them can, but a lot of them, and a lot of their families follow us on Facebook, and they follow the Town of Sutton website, as well as public access. So hopefully I'll keep everybody up to date on how we plan on going forward eventually.
Sure. Well, listen, again, as everyone has said, we really appreciate you and your team. I think it's fair to say that we're all really proud of the work that happens down there. So thank you for that. It's always interesting to have you come before us, and this time, as much as any, is as interesting as anything that we do. So,
yeah. So if you're looking for some goodness, it's right there. And I appreciate all the pats on the back, but really it's the folks that are donating. It's the folks that are stepping up to help me to be able to make this happen. It's really all of the people, organizations and whatnot in town. And a big thanks, honestly, to Jim, who set the precedent. We were the ones that were staying on in the beginning to be there for our seniors, and then people kind of followed suit, which was nice to say that, he really looked out for the town, and every other towns started to kind of follow suit with that. So a huge thanks to him.
Excellent. All right. Well, listen, thank you very much for sitting through our poll hearing and contributing tonight. So it's great to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks, guys. Be safe.
I know.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the approval of the election warrant. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have before you the election warrant for June 23rd. And we've moved that obviously from the original election on May 26th. We've condensed the voting from noon to 4 p.m. and that's required by state law that we have at least 4 hours of voting. We are going to do an outreach campaign at this point. As soon as the board approves the election warrant, Laura Caruso, the town clerk, is going to spearhead this and essentially encourage everybody to absentee vote. So that's just people contact town hall, they ask for an absentee ballot, it's sent to them, and they return that, and that's a vote. So rather than focus on everybody going out and doing their civic duty, which is available to them if they choose to do that. But we've also condensed not condensed, we have 2 precincts up at the high school. One is in the middle school gym, and the other precinct will now be in Ramasco gym. So they'll be separate. In the previous years, we've had, 1 and 3 in the same area. We just felt like social distancing and taking the appropriate means. And we also have set up a separate entrance exit, so there's no crowding at the Ramasco gym entrance in and out. So that's all laid out, and you'll hear more about that in the next month. Manchog will still be at Precinct 2 will still be down at Manchog Fire Station. We are looking to open the station doors and have people come in and go out at different exits. So to prevent any obviously crowding at that site, but we are encouraging anybody that wants to do it by absentee if they so choose, or you can also go to the precinct and cast your ballot.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll turn it over to the board then. Jesse, go ahead.
I'll be honest, Mr. Chairman. I think Jim's update was pretty on point. I don't really have any questions at this time. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Wendy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question. Is contacting Laura the way to get the absentee ballots, or is there another process?
I think that's probably the easiest one. If you leave a voicemail on her machine, if she's not there to answer it, or Pam Gem isn't there, she will get back to any individual and send out an absentee ballot to them.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wendy. Jonathan?
Thank you. I just have 2 questions. Number 1 is, what is the voting period for absentee ballot? And then number 2, will there be maybe a notice to remind people, since this is not on a kind of a traditional date for us to vote, will there be some sort of a notice on our website and in the Facebook? So those are my 2 questions.
Yeah, good questions. We honestly wanted to wait until this gets approved by the board, which assuming that happens tonight, and then move forward tomorrow with the outreach to the public, explaining how to get an absentee ballot, et cetera. So we've been waiting on this meeting to do that. Your other question was what now?
Just like a reminder, maybe like a couple days before, just on the Facebook page or someplace, because it's kind of a non-traditional time for us to be voting, and
yeah, we will
all that's
probably
going on
advertise
for people. Yeah.
on the board outside of town hall for the center of town. We'll also use the Lions Club down at 146 in Boston Road, that sign. But we've also talked about putting up the fire department has that big sign board that sometimes is used to advertise the precinct locations and time to vote, et cetera. So we're looking to see where we put that and the message that goes up. But we are thinking advertising the election date as well as encouraging people to vote absentee. There's been other suggestions, Jonathan, about having a robocall, a code red, just announcing what's going on with not only to town election, but town meeting as well.
Okay.
And that remains a discussion, and I'm open to feedback on that.
Yeah, I think anything we can do to just let people know, because they've got a lot on their minds right now, and I think it's always important for us to vote, and it's part of our civic duty, and I want people to have every opportunity to have that in their top of mind and get out and do it if they so choose.
Yeah, good point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jeff?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of comments. First, Jim, that's to me, I think that's a good idea, but the robocall, the code red, just to let people know about it, because like Jonathan mentioned, it is an odd date.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, none of these races are contested.
That's correct.
Is there a full slate of nominees for all of the positions?
There are, except that a couple of those positions are write-in candidates, and Laura Caruso has that information. So I think it's the Housing Authority member. There's somebody interested, but they obviously didn't get their paperwork in on time. And the other position may be the library trustee. There's somebody interested in that position, but again, due in large part to the coronavirus issues we've had, they weren't able to get the signatures in, and et cetera. So there are two candidates that are running for a vacancy. And so it is a non-contested election.
Okay. That's really all the questions I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I guess the comment that I was going to make is that it is there aren't any contested races in this. And although, as Jonathan said, and I normally would echo, you want to do everything that you can do to get the word out about elections and encourage people to vote. That's, I think we would all share this, that's our civic duty and our right and all that kind of stuff. And yet in this particular time with having polls open and people having to come to the polls, I think I'm grateful, I guess I'll put it that way, that it is an uncontested election, and that, it's likely to be a low turnout affair. So, my assumption is that the statewide order at that point will be that masks are still required in public. And I guess my question would simply be for people that are going to vote in person, that we're going to require. Are we planning to require people that enter the polling places to be wearing masks?
Yes, we will. Obviously we're going to, be respectful of individuals. Obviously, if they have a health issue, there's some issue that they have that they can't wear a mask, then we'll be respectful of that. But in most cases, I would expect a mask to be worn by prospective voters.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's just, we're asking poll workers to spend the day doing their work, and it's a tough situation. So,
and the fact is, most of those poll workers are elderly, and
sure.
we're just trying to be sensitive to the health issues potentially.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may.
If for some reason this order is rescinded, will there be efforts made to keep the poll workers isolated, piece of plexiglass or something like that? Might be something to consider, because again, I don't know. I won't get into the politics of it, but I don't know, if it's still going to be in place. But if it's not, I'm thinking that because we have mostly seniors, we might want to be a little overcautious on their behalf.
My belief is, due to the governor's plan, that this state of emergency, state of emergency will still be in effect to some extent. The reopening plan that he put out yesterday has a 4-phase implementation with 3 weeks between phases, and it was complicated. But in the end, my guess is that this will still be in effect.
Okay, well, again, just something that's out there that
Yep.
if on the off chance that it is rescinded, that maybe we would just for their well-being.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. That's really all I have. Jonathan, we have a motion in front of us. If you'd like to, if you're ready for that.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve as presented the annual town election warrant.
Second.
That's a motion and a second. All in favor? David Hall, aye.
Wendy Mead, aye.
Jesse Lemanik, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Dave, one other thing. Jonathan also asked the cutoff for early voting. That'll probably be the Friday before Election Day, and I believe that's June 19th. So that'll be the cutoff for early voting.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Hang on, I'm checking some dates while you're doing this. Okay. All right, next agenda item, review the draft town meeting warrant. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the draft town meeting warrant. As the board, I think, has already, taken under consideration and voted that we wanted to keep this town meeting limited to only essential items to keep the town operating, and to leave out potentially contentious items that could draw a lot of interest and attendance at a town meeting. And not that we're trying to defer attendance or detract from attending, but hopefully with this agenda, which is routine, it'll be less of an issue of overcrowding down at the auditorium on the 22nd, June 22nd. The draft is Articles 1 through 8 are the same as they've always been, but I'll go through them just really quickly just to give you folks an update. Article 1 is to receive reports of town offices and committees. That's a standard article that we have every year. Article 2 is to authorize the cemetery commissioners to employ themselves. Another standard article that the cemetery commissioners generally dig the graves during the winter time, et cetera. So they are employed but town meeting needs to authorize this for them to get paid to do this work. Article number 3, although we used to have it, we don't currently, but this authorizes the Board of Health to employ themselves. But I don't think the Board of Health does any of the work currently, but it is a fallback and we just want to keep that item there. Article number 4 is the transfers, this sewer department budget for 2021. Article number 5 is the transfer station budget for 2021. Article number 6 is the town budget. As we, it's still a work in progress. We're getting very little direction from the state as far as state aid. A lot of people are waiting to see if the federal government is going to provide any money to states and municipalities. But at some point we need to go after this. And, Tim and I are following everything on a daily basis. And as soon as we get more information, and we'd like to make the changes prior to town meeting, if at all possible. So if we get changes, late May or early June, we'll probably make the budget impact. So when the budget is voted in on the 22nd, it's we all know what we're getting into. Article number 7 is the capital plan, as it is every year. Article number 8 is our prior year invoices. I don't know that we have any right now, but it is a placeholder that if we do have any prior year invoices, that is where they will be addressed.
We actually have two.
I'm sorry?
We actually have 2 invoices.
Okay. Article number 9 is the town can borrow in lieu of Chapter 90 money that we're waiting to get reimbursed on. It's a short-term borrowing if needed. We haven't had to use this article in the recent past, and we hope not to have to use it in the future, but it is a placeholder that we want to keep there. Article number 10 is to transfer funds from the compensated absences fund, which the town meeting voted a year ago to create. We funded it with $200,000 in free cash. We are accessing this because of the retirement of Lieutenant Perry from the police department, and he has quite a bit of sick time buyback and vacation time buyback that this fund will take care of. And obviously, if we have any money at the end of the year from the police department, we will look to transfer back into that compensated absences fund to replenish it if possible. Article number 11 is to transfer some monies from free cash to the general stabilization fund. This will allow us to withdraw $50,000 at the fall town meeting for recurring revenue. The general stabilization fund is a healthy fund, almost 2.5 million, and it meets the board of selectmen's goal of 8% of operating revenues minus debt exclusion debt. So we're at that level, and I think an extra 100,000 will put us over the top, and then we can withdraw 50, you know, the fund won't go down at all. Article number 11 is to transfer money from capital stabilization fund to long-term debt principal. This was created by last year's vote of purchasing a piece of fire apparatus for the fire department, a highway vehicle, and repaving Central Turnpike. This is probably the second year, and next year will be the third, and then we will be done paying the debt on all 3 projects. And Article 13 is a placeholder, and it's to fund any accounts that are underfunded at this point in time. Tim, are you aware of any that we have at this point, or are we going to do year-end transfers to cover?
Yeah, anything we have at this point is relatively minor, so we could take care of it with the usual year-end transfers between Finance Committee and the Selectmen approval.
Okay. So that's the agenda right now. Obviously, we've left off some key issues. You know, sewer to the town, purchase of land up at Waters Road. The planning board had a number of articles that they would have liked to have seen, but we are pretty much holding off on all that until things change, and hopefully soon.
Okay, great. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, just really on your last point, I'd just like to thank you for putting that out there. I mean, obviously, you know, town meeting in Sutton for the last several years, we've had a couple of contentious issues here and there, but at the end of the day, spring town meeting is about keeping the town in operation. So I appreciate the effort that you've put in, that Tim's put in, and all the other departments in terms of trimlining it, you know, just keeping it to the meat and potatoes, as it were, just so that way we can get in and out. And all of those other items we can deal with, again, when we return to normalcy. So we'll deal with those in the fall. I do have 2 quick questions in terms of the presentation. The first is in terms of the draw off of the stabilization fund. That is purely interest, correct? That we're drawing from, not the fund itself.
Yes.
Okay. I knew that, but again, I just wanted to make sure that it was out there.
Yep.
And in terms of the budget, obviously everything, even at this point, is still in flux. Everything's in motion. If there are large gaps due to failure of the state to finalize their budget, all of those gaps can be dealt with in the fall through year-end transfers, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we will have to make changes to the budget, which we do every fall. fall when we get a late budget from the state. Typically, they don't pass the budget until late July anyway.
Right.
And we make final adjustments at the fall town meeting. So that would be our plan, yes.
So essentially, we're going to go forward, again, say everything is green lighted, we're back up and running as soon as possible. You know, perfect scenario, the schools reopen, the senior center, the library, everything's back open. We do have the means to fund that going into the next fiscal year.
Yeah, you know, right now, yeah, it's still a question on what the state is going to give us. You know, if it's a short-term issue, you know, we have other potential solutions. If it's a longer-term issue and we don't see a recovery real quick, then we've got to consider different solutions. Obviously, we've got a lot of one-time revenue and free cash and et cetera, but we're going to be real careful about appropriating that for a gap where we don't see it turning around all that quickly. The good news is we are doing relatively well on local receipts, which is an area where we've been conservative, as you all know. I do think we're going to end the year on a positive on local receipts, so it's really just state aid that we are concerned about at this point in time.
All right, excellent, excellent. All right, everything else looks in order, and I look forward to what hopefully will be one of the shortest town meetings on record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you. Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a thank you to Jim for paring this down to the necessary articles, not basic, but necessary.
Yeah.
And I truly hope that come fall that we're able to address the rest of the necessary matters. I'm hopeful yet.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I have nothing to add. I think both Jesse and Wendy have covered anything that I had questions on. And I just, you know, these are really important that we pass them. You know, they're keeping the business going. But again, I think it made a lot of sense to pare this down to just the essential items. So I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you. Jeff?
No surprises for me, and so no real issues or questions. So I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So, Jim, if we could, let's talk more about process than anything else.
Sure.
You know, we have postponed this meeting to this date. We contemplated what would happen if we found ourselves in a position that we needed to postpone it again. The governor put out some guidelines around what we could do from a budget standpoint if we had to go into a new year without having a current budget passed because of the circumstances, not being able to have a meeting. You know, so clearly we're saying at this point that we think we're ready to have a meeting in person. You know, we've all talked about paring down the content of the meeting to keep it short, maybe keep it less exciting than it might have been otherwise. So can you just speak a little bit about at least the potential for a location change, and also what you plan to do on the stage and even in the audience a little bit to try to just deal with the circumstances?
Yeah, right now, you know, I know in my update I mentioned that we're going to have it in the Ramasco gym, but we keep going back and forth between Pam and myself and Justin Falvo over at the school department and on what is the best scenario. We are looking to have, if we do hold it in the auditorium, Pat Morris, the chair of the finance committee, has agreed to read all the articles and be the only one on stage. You know, hopefully over in the select board, if we don't pass the microphone between each other, and, you know, that's a potential, you know, risk, you know, that if the chairman is authorized by the select board to read all motions, that would probably be the healthiest way. And my guess is there'll be another microphone down by my part of the table so that I can answer any questions that might come up regarding, you know, any of the articles. But to limit the potential for an issue. And then we've got to figure out the seating on the stage if we do that. It's going to be challenging to have us sit side by side as we normally do at town meeting. You know, we are essentially on top of each other. You know, obviously with the 6 feet of separation guidelines, you know, we have to still work out some of those logistics. But, you know, we are feeling confident with this limited agenda that, you know, the people that do show up at town meeting, we can put them at various points in that auditorium and they can be, you know, socially distant at acceptable levels.
And I think, you know, I suspect all agree that with this a particular agenda that we would anticipate a small enough crowd to be able to kind of control where people sit and keep the crowd themselves okay. So it's
Yeah,
really
you
up
know,
to us.
town meetings are going on. There's one going on next week that I spoke to the individual today. Others are happening. Many of them have been pushed out to June. So I think ours is far enough out that, you know, we are hopefully getting further away from this issue, at least flattening the curve in the original goals of the leaders of the state and federal government. So, you know, the bottom line to me is if it doesn't happen at the end of June, what's going to change 30 days? And well, first of all, July and August are very difficult times. It's usually vacation time. Not that there'll be a lot of great vacations this summer, but, you know, staycations. And I wouldn't expect town residents to come out to a town meeting in the middle of July or even August. So, you know, and then you push it out to September or even fall town meeting. And that's difficult going 4 months on a 1/12 budget. And, you know, we can do it if forced to do it, but it would be a challenge.
Well, I think I would take, and feel free to speak up, but the absence of comments from the other board members as a sign that as a board, we seem to be ready to move forward with this arrangement. And you know, personally, I guess I would echo what you just said. I think that although there is a method that's been put forward, we're allowed to move forward without a budget if we needed to. It really just hamstrings the entire government in our ability to operate. So it really would be awkward to have to operate in that environment. Much better if we can get together and actually pass this, these set of articles in this budget to be able to free our hand, being able to move forward, particularly given the idea that there could be complications in next year's budget because of shortages, you know, potential shortages from the state government. So,
Yeah,
like, you know, I guess that's my message to the public is that that you know, we've done everything we can to make this as minimalist a warrant as possible, and that these things are just at a point where it makes the most sense to try to get together and pass it. So, you know, I welcome further comments from the board if there are any. But otherwise, I guess that's the answer.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just think we go for it. You know, we're still another month plus away from town meeting date. And by then, you know, not only is the curve being flattened, but you look at the trends across the country. And I think we'll be in a good enough place that with this limited agenda, that we'll be able to get it done. So that way we don't have to worry about some more of those complications, you know, down the road.
Yeah. You know, the only thing I'd add is that also the further we get into this thing, I think the more we all learn and the more we're able to create guidelines and protocols to allow us to do whatever we have to do in as safe a manner as possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, I know there's more discussion about the location and there's more discussion about seating arrangements, but those we'll take care of those things.
Yeah,
I
I'd
just
say
have a
just
question.
let.
Oh, sorry, Jesse.
Yep, no, not a problem. I'd just say just let it play out. You know, let's see how things progress. And you know, I have full faith that, you know, between the school department and town hall, you know, we'll have a safe but functional town meeting.
Was there someone else who was trying to comment there?
Jonathan?
Go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Jesse. And I also just wanted to ask a question is what's the minimum quorum that we would need to approve or attendees to approve the articles?
There is no quorum in Sutton as established by the charter. So if we have 10 people that show up, then they can pass everything.
All right. I want to make sure people knew.
A lesson for future meetings. And so then, we have we have to deal with public hearings and that kind of thing with FinCom as well.
Yep.
And those, I guess I don't really know where that stands in terms of whether you plan to do that through a Zoom call or whether that is something you also would like to try to do in person.
No, we're going to have it remote via Zoom on June 9th. We have limited the agenda to Dr. Fitzpatrick from BBT, police, fire, highway, and then the school department. So a lot of the smaller departments that really are not seeing a significant impact on the budget, essentially the same budget it was in 2020 with cost of living adjustments, et cetera. But the bigger departments I wanted to have involved in the public hearing. And right now we're scheduled, I think, for 6 p.m. on June 9th. And if that goes late, which I doubt, then we will continue it on to Wednesday night, the following night.
Okay. So that's entirely remote at that point then.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned it to the committee in that joint meeting that they felt comfortable doing it via Zoom versus coming into town hall and having that meeting.
But like the poll hearing we had tonight, it is a public hearing, so that
Yep.
it will be afforded through the same kind of public postings that we have, the opportunity to know how to participate in that meeting if they wish to do that.
No question. Yeah, we will advertise that. Everybody will have access to that information.
Okay. Okay. Questions, comments about that to the board? Great. All right. Well, I don't think we have a vote on this. It's just an update. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So with that, then I guess we're ready to move on to the town manager's update. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few updates. Going off of what we just talked about, the finance and warrant public hearing is scheduled for June 9th at 6 p.m. Again, we've invited Dr. Fitzpatrick from BVT. He has confirmed he will attend via Zoom, police, fire, highway, and the school committee. And the committee itself is confident with the Zoom process. Transfer station stickers. Donna Wood really has been the lead on this whole effort to try to sell those stickers online versus in person, which is important at this time of year during going through this. We've agreed to sell them to City Hall Systems, our current online vendor. Anyone interested in a transfer station sticker would fill out the paperwork online and submit a payment of $50. As the board knows, we went up $10 from $40 to $50. And when the information comes over the online to the office, Donna Wood will fill out the registration information on the sticker and then put it in the mail and mail it out to the resident. At some point, we issue roughly 1,200 transfer station stickers, so it's a lot of work. So we may have to hire Donna and Darlene, the sewer clerk, to do some overtime in July, late June, July, to process all the transfer station stickers. But I do like the fact that we're becoming more of an online business, so to speak, creating more options for residents. So brush chipping, we're going to move forward with that down at transfer stations on June 5th. which is a Saturday from 8 a.m. till noontime. Donation of face shields. United Plastics Corporation, they're doing business out on 122A, donated 50 face shields to the town of Sutton. And obviously, they donate in the communities that they do business. They have a number of different corporate sites. Sutton happens to be one of them, and they contacted us and asked if we would like some face shields. And there was a press event that was outside of Town Hall where we accepted the donation. And thanks goes out to United Plastics Corporation for obviously their generous donation. Marion's Camp Beach. We've been discussing this back and forth internally. Right now, we're not likely to open the beach. It's just the challenge of having lifeguards at that site. If, obviously their health and, if they have to, go home and, wearing masks, etc., it just seems kind of complicated. So the parking lot will be open. Access to the trails will be available. The beach itself is kind of a small beach. It's not like the beaches on Situate or Narragansett. It's a very small area. And, I don't want to put the lifeguards in the job of policing, you're too close, too many people, stop at the parking lot. We've got to let the beach clear out. So that's what we're thinking right now. Matt Stencil is planning on putting a big sign in the sand, essentially saying that the beach is closed. It is a tough situation, but it does seem like the best way to go at this point in time. We have also stopped taking money at the Manchog boat ramp. Generally, people, in-state residents provide $6. Out-of-state residents are paid $12. But taking that cash, having Deb Jakes count that cash out, it's just potentials for contamination. So we decided to put a bag over that, and people will still have access to that boat ramp, but we aren't collecting any fees for that service. We still have roughly $36,000 in the boat ramp account, so it's a healthy account. But this is one year that we decided to just put it on hold for now. Town meeting, as we talked about, would take place at 7 p.m. on June 22nd. We are still determining whether it will be in the Ramasco gym or in the auditorium. The board obviously provided some feedback. I do think we will be able to socially distance, and we'll figure out an arrangement if we do hold it in the auditorium, how to have the presenters present at a distant level from each other. And then the election on the 23rd from noon to 4 p.m. In the meantime, I am working on a reopening protocol, which is roughly what the state asked us to look at. So we are debating that. Right now, we're looking to open town hall by appointment only on June 1st. So anybody that needs to come in and do business with, the town clerk for a marriage license or anything else, or the building commissioner, would call them, set up an appointment. Part of that protocol is that temperature is taken at the entrance, and that's coordinating with Cheryl Owinski, the Board of Health. So a number of steps that we need to go through, and we are in the process of developing that. So right now we are looking at June 1st. We may move that one way or the other, depending upon a number of different things, but that's our plan right now.
Okay, excellent, Jim. Thank you. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, real quick on the transfer stickers, transfer station stickers, still
Yep.
be able to send in checks, correct?
Yes, yeah. As long as there's, we're working, Donna is meeting tomorrow with Pam Nichols to discuss, putting the required information that we need for a transfer station online, so they can just download that, fill it out, and then send a check and information online over the mail. So, yeah, either way would work fine.
Would it also be possible to have some of the forms that you fill out available at the transfer station itself? I know Dave has been out with surgery, and I know there's been, people filling in, but it might be useful because, again, I'm thinking more of along the lines of the seniors. They may not have internet access that, disproportionately use the transfer station, just giving them the means to get the document itself so that way they could, mail it in might be very helpful.
Yeah, no, good point. And we can actually look at that. Right now we have a policy of the guard area at the transfer station is off limits. We're not selling special permit stickers or giving out bags or anything else. Maybe we could put something on the side wall with a sign that says information for transfer station stickers, and
like a inbox or something like that,
Yeah.
slotted, just clearly labeled, so that way
Yeah,
if
we'll
anyone
look at that.
needs, if they need an application, they can go up and self-service.
Right, exactly. Good point.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you. Marion's Camp. That's the tough call. Again, we don't know where we're going to be, and I appreciate the fact that you're being proactive, but I also appreciate the fact that the residents, if they do wish to take their own risk, that, that will be definitely documented. As you said, this is not like we're down at the ocean side where we've got miles of pristine beaches, but I do know that there's a lot of residents that utilize the town beach. So, okay, there's not going to be lifeguards there, but at least, we're not restricting them, in an unreasonable fashion. So, it's up to them. And I have faith in our residents that, they'll do the responsible things for themselves and their families. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
The last question, I did have one other question. Oh, the opening procedure. I'm assuming that once you formalize things, that again, that information will be provided
Oh, yeah.
To the residents.
Yeah, no, well, I'm going to go through the select board first. This is everything's in progress right now. Virtually everything that we do is in progress. But I will have a draft done probably by the end of this week or beginning of next week, and then I will send it out to the board through the chairman for thoughts and comments, because it may be before the next select board meeting, which is on the 2nd of June.
Right. Well, fingers crossed, hopefully that we're at that point, because again, it'd be nice to get back to normalcy.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have nothing else.
Thank you. Wendy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick comments. The donation of the face shields, it's incredibly generous, and I'm sure that the health department is putting them to good use. There's an incredible shortage of those throughout the first responders right now, so I think that's fantastic. Marion's Camp, it's unfortunate, but I don't really think we have much of an option. Is there any plan in place in the off chance that the trails there become similar to other trails in the community that are sort of overrun by people who aren't socially distancing? There's the potential that those trails might be closed?
Yeah, I mean, that's always an option. I prefer to, give the trust to the residents to make the appropriate decisions. And, hopefully it's not an issue. But yeah, it's always an option if we're forced to do that. But, we try to give them the benefit of the doubt and just, hopefully they all are aware of the situation we're in.
Okay. That's all I have right now. I think we've hit on town meeting pretty comprehensively. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome. Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to just thank Universal Plastics Corporation for their donation to the town. It's a very generous gift. And, just the fact that they thought of us and are willing to do that, and probably other places that they're probably giving to as well. Just to echo the Marion's Camp, I think the one comment I'd like to make is that if people do decide to utilize the beach at their own risk, that we avoid a situation like we had with the schools where a few abused, kind of like didn't follow the rules, and then we ended up closing it for everybody. And I hate to see that happen where we close the gate and nobody can go in there at all. So I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I also want to make sure that people are cognizant and kind of not ruining it for everybody else because of, they don't really want to follow the rules that have been outlined for us, to stay safe. So I think it's great that we're keeping this asset open for people to use the trails, and I just hope it stays that way because I think it's a great asset for people to be able to go out and exercise and be outside. So.
Yeah, it is a difficult decision, and I don't have all the answers. I do think, having people, if they choose to go in the water, they're swimming at their own risks. But, if they choose to do that and something happens, then it puts public safety at risk because you're going to have police and fire respond like they normally do. And they will take care of whatever situation they run into. I have full faith in them to do that. But people need to realize that. If they choose to do that, then you might be putting other people's lives at risk.
Yeah. So that's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jeff?
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a lot of comments that haven't really been brought up. I do also want to recognize and thank Universal Plastics for their donation. That was extremely generous and appreciated. Marion's Camp, I think that I agree. I think it was the right call, and I'm hopeful that it works out, and that we can keep it that way. Are there any plans if the situation changes for the better over the summer to open the beaches back up and bring the lifeguards back? Is that a possibility?
I don't know what would change to that point. I don't think we will have a vaccine this summer. Hopefully it comes soon, but I still think the virus will be out there and to be contended with. And I think if we just, those 2 or 3 months, or it's really 2 months, it's just a difficult call. I'm not willing to make that call on behalf of the people we'd have to hire.
I think it's a good call as well. So I don't really have any other questions that we haven't talked about throughout the meeting. So that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Jim, just quickly at the transfer station, given that it's maybe a little more difficult this year than it's been, if you have an existing sticker that just expires and you're in the process of renewing, how maybe this is dangerous to ask on television, but how much of a stickler are we about allowing somebody in while the renewal's kind of going on process?
You're asking me, not Dave Arsenal, right?
Maybe Jesse, do you know?
Yeah. Listen,
We'll let Dave answer that one.
Yeah, okay.
What we will do is anybody that has applied, obviously they can get a receipt from the transaction that they've applied. And if it's in transit, then they can just go to the transfer station and show their receipt that they have ordered it. And it's just going to take a while to get out there, hopefully not that long, but
yeah.
A few days.
Okay.
So
we'll go to code that.
Yeah.
And the brush chipping, is that the typical hours that, is that typically what we would do this?
Yeah, it's usually 4 hours.
Yeah.
The highway guys get a little overtime, which is kind of unique this year because they've been working, periodic staggered shifts, but it is a service to the residents that we wanted to continue in spite of the situation we're going through.
Okay. And I'd like to also add my thanks to Universal Plastics for their donation. As we talked about earlier with the food pantry, to find local businesses that are stepping up and helping in our time of need is just a good thing. So thank you to them. Marion's Camp, I agree also that it was the right thing to do. And I just had a question about MRA. Are they, just for other reasons, are they kind of out this year anyway?
They are. They've kind of canceled everything. They may at some point request to have their swim down there, but there will be no triathlon, no, full triathlon in August.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I was
they
asking
canceled
about their morning swim. I would imagine that under the orders that exist today, they can't do that. But at some point, it sounds like gyms and things like that are open up, so they may be in a place where they could be allowed to come back and do it.
Yeah, we've never had lifeguards down there for that. So if they choose to, Alex will be in touch with me, and I will let the board know how they'd like to proceed.
Okay. And, I think I would like to touch just briefly on the Ramasco gym, just for this board, because the problem has been that although the Ramasco gym is bigger and would allow for more distancing, that the digital setup down there isn't as good and isn't as ready to be, just switched on as we have at the auditorium. So I think that's kind of what the hang up is, why it's not so easy to just make that decision.
Right.
So we may be part of the discussion. We may have some input into how we're willing to participate to see if we could, maybe change the way we're set up to allow the participant, to allow it to go on in the usual venue. So just be aware of that.
Yeah.
We get asked. So that's the update, Jim. Thank you for the update.
Sure.
As always, good. And then I think we're at roundtable and doing open business. So Jesse?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Wendy alluded to, I do have a food pantry list. Michelle has been very spot on about posting it, so I'll share her latest post, which came yesterday. They're looking for canned ham, flavored rice, and flavored noodles, light or low-fat mayonnaise, diced tomatoes, beef gravy, Jell-O pudding mix, cake mix, as well as cleaning spray, hand soap, laundry detergent, and dish detergent. And of course, any masks or anything, that, residents wish to donate, I'm sure that would be appreciative as well. Because again, as Michelle alluded to, any donations in those regards she's sharing them with the seniors and the people who come to the food pantry. So just thank you to everybody for their continued support. The second thing, Jim, if it's all right with you, I'd just like to just mention briefly about Memorial Day.
Yes,
we are plan on having a small ceremony, which will replicate the process of which we normally, or the post normally performs in terms of going to the cemeteries. Again, I think it's going to be recorded and posted on the town channel and YouTube. But again, so, do not fret, town of Sutton, the veterans and those who served will definitely be memorialized in a different fashion. But again, we will still pay them the respect that's owed. And the last thing I have, and it's something that Jonathan touched about, and Jim, if you don't want to answer this, it's okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot. But he mentioned, again, the tennis courts and the basketball courts. I understand that they are shut down because people were misbehaving. But in light, again, of the governor pushing forward of opening up the state, is there going to be a timetable in which possibly those could once again be available to the public? And again, if you don't want to answer it, that's fine.
No, they may be. That's really a school committee superintendent decision. I mean, the courts and everything else down at the school is under the care, custody, and control of the school committee and the superintendent. So, I was advised of that, and we all know what led to that decision. But it's possible at some point in the summer that they will be opened up and made available.
That would be good, because again, the health and well-being of everybody, we have to be mindful of. So thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Wendy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one brief comment. Having spoken with several people in town, I do want to thank them for tuning in. I know these Zoom meetings are unusual on many levels. And watching them from home, I know adds, another component to that. But I am thrilled to see the town, as we know it, is really still supportive of the board and all the other boards as well that are participating in the same way. So just thank you to the community for their support.
Well said.
That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no updates at this time.
Excellent. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree that these Zoom meetings are different. And one of the things that I'm finding is when we hold these Zoom meetings and you're at home and it's this time of day and you can start to smell the smells from the kitchen. and then Jesse reads the food pantry list.
Sorry, Jeff.
I think, and you can all thank me later. I don't have any comments, any updates.
That's why I come to the office to have these.
No one can hear my giggle in the background, can they?
You're starting to remind me of John Hebert. Come on, let's get going. Let's get going. Just a couple of things. Jesse, maybe you can help me with this one.
Sure.
The Memorial Day services, typically there are things that we all actually get a chance to participate in. This year, are they trying to keep the public kind of away from those things?
Yeah, this is not going to be an event that's open to the public. It's only going to have 9 members of the Post of all the different families. Because I am a member of the Post through the Sons, I am going to be representing the town. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to make sure that I have lots of water because of the 655 names, I believe I'm going to be tasked with reading most of them. So in terms of process, we're going to follow the same outline as we do when we get to the bigger cemeteries. So we will have an honor guard there. We will have a flag bearer. We will do the presentation of the wreath, but most importantly, we'll go through the honor roll. The Dud parking lot is going to be closed. We're going to block access to it. And anybody who attempts to stop, we're going to have somebody well off in the distance that just kinds to say, sorry, thank you, but you're going to have to move on, because the intent obviously is to comply for this presentation, with all the rules that have come down from Beacon Hill. So again, we're trying to commemorate and remember those who lost their lives in combat and those who served. But at the same time, we're doing so in a socially responsible manner.
Yep. Well, I just say a couple of things. First of all, I think your duties as clerk, where you have to read in all of these long notices and things like that, are giving you
Good practice
for having to read out all those names.
Well, if I may, on terms of town meeting procedure, I like what Pat's doing, stepping up and doing all the motions. So if I may nominate Mr. Chairman to fill in for me. So that'd be nice.
We'll see. The other thing is, certainly I think we just appreciate that the efforts being made to continue to honor our veterans in the way that we can. So I do think that Pam and the cable team down there is working on a virtual Memorial Day presentation.
That's correct.
So I think there will be something that the public will have some access to through that. So if we can't do something in person, at least we have an opportunity to try to honor our veterans in some way. So
perfect.
The other thing that I've been asked to read about a rolling rally for our high school seniors. So I have a flyer here that I will kind of read. It says, help us celebrate the class of 2020, Rolling Rally 2020, June 4th, rain date of June 5th, a rolling rally to celebrate the Sutton High School class of 2020. Help us make this day a great one for these fantastic students. We hope to see you on the parade route wearing a Sutton green to cheer our seniors. And of course, it says, please maintain proper social distancing requirements and stay safe. The parade plans to leave the Sutton campus at 3:30. And I think it makes sense to just read the travel route. So it's going to leave the elementary school driveway, take a right onto Boston Road, traveling east through the Route 146 intersection, and continuing east on Boston Road. It'll take a right onto Hartness Road and then quickly bearing right onto Dodge Hill Road. Travel Dodge Hill Road to Central Turnpike, right onto Central Turnpike traveling to Putnam Hill Road, left turn from Central Turnpike onto Putnam Hill, travel Putnam Hill Road to the intersection of Manchog Road, Main Street, Whitens Road, right turn onto Manchog Road, and continue traveling until the Central Turnpike intersection. Right turn onto Central Turnpike, continuing traveling until the intersection of Putnam Hill Road. Left turn onto Putnam Hill Road and travel to the student parking lot area of the high school. They expect the whole thing to take about an hour. So if it happens to be coming by your place or something, if you can get out and give some appreciation to our seniors. I do know the school is hoping to still have something like a more traditional ceremony later in the year, if that becomes possible. But in the short term, or in the near term, I guess this is our opportunity to celebrate the great work of our seniors who have persevered through some tough times this year. So, so good luck with them. I hope that goes well. That's what I have. So if there's nothing else, then you'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jeff's hungry. We got to go.
I'm in favor.
All right, everybody. That passes unanimously. Thanks very much, and we will.